Pixel Therapy is a member of the But Why Though podcast network.
Go to butwhythoughpodcast.com for an inclusive geek community offering pop culture news, reviews, and podcasts.
There's opinion, which is like a more traditional criticism. But there's also stories. Seeing people, they were talking about the game, but the game wasn't like the focus of the piece. It was how they felt, if the experience or the story or the characters or the music or something that happened, even if it was just like one moment in like a 20-hour game or like a 100-hour game that stuck with them. That's what I'm interested in.
Welcome to Pixel Therapy, the video game podcast where we look at the games we play through the lens of the player, where what you play is just as important as how you play it, and where emotional intelligence is a critical stat. Every other week, we bring on a guest who may or may not consider themselves a gamer to discuss the games that have made them and changed them, and all the feelings they have about our favorite pastime. I'm your co-host, Jamie, pronouns she, her.
And I'm your co-host, Spencer, pronouns they, them.
And this is Pixel Therapy. We're jumping right in with our Patreon shout-outs. This is our special thank you to everyone who subscribed at our Patreon name in the credits tier. And since it is now February, I've got an updated list for all of you, fresh out of the oven.
Kisses to our Valentines.
Oh, this month we're giving a big warm Pixel Therapy thank you to Val, Genevieve, Lindsay, Grace, Jackie, Ben, Cortland, and Pimhatai. Thank you all so much for your support.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Love y'all. Remember, if you lovely listeners want to get your name in the credits, you can hop on over to patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can subscribe for as little as $2 a month and get access to a monthly bonus episode of the show that's just Spencer and I chatting it up for your listening pleasure. And if you're a fan of what we do here on Pixel Therapy, please consider sharing us with your friends and family, rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, or you can even write into the show by emailing us at pixeltherapypod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Speaking of sharing us with your friends and family, some people were doing that because apparently just this last week, we charted for the first time in Canada. Folks who follow us on Twitter maybe already know this, but we broke the top 200 in Apple Podcasts in the video games category in Canada for the first time this last week. And that was really exciting for us as we're continuing to grow. It's just a little bit of just podcasting doesn't give you much like audience feedback. So it was just really cool to see. And it's just really nice to know that y'all are out there listening. So thank you.
Hi, friends. Hi, Canadian friends. All right, folks, it's time to get cozy, pull up an armchair, feel free to lie down on the couch, and let's talk about our feelings. Spencer, how are you?
I'm well, Jamie. I did something yesterday. I did IRL Mario Kart, aka I went go-kart racing.
Oh, damn. Holy shit.
I have to say, I have not sat in a go-kart since I want to say like 8 or 9 years old. So I did not know what to expect. And one of my housemates found this place, which is allegedly the fastest go-karts in New England. They go up to 40 miles per hour.
Oh my God. Really blows the hair back.
Yeah, it really does. When I saw that, I was like, but when we got there, they got us in these like motorcycle helmets. They got us in neck braces, which I really appreciated because I did not want to get whiplash. And it's these little go-karts. The center of gravity is like crazy low. So it's kind of like this flat, circular-ish car. And the engine is kind of similar to like a lawnmower engine. It's very loud. And the oil looked almost like vegetable oil. I don't know anything about cars. So I'm just painting the verbal picture for all of you. But I have to say, like, we did a round that was just the 6 of us, just a few friends. My racer name was Gay Lightning.
Oh,
so just wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you.
That's nice.
And it's like you go on this like windy track. Like the turns are like crazy hard. And something I wasn't expecting is that the cart, like it has a brake and a gas, like a real little car. But the steering wheel, it's like very hard to turn the wheel. And these turns come up really sharp and you're just kind of like, okay, guess I'm going to make it around or not. I was definitely Tokyo drifting a bit, like braking. It was just, the braking was very jarring. And so I was doing my best to kind of just like use the momentum. Something I was also not realizing is that it's based on, like, you're not racing each other. You're just racing to get your fastest lap. So that kind of takes the pressure off in terms of like trying to run people off the road. But it was just like a really cool experience.
I suspect the go-kart place wouldn't want that for liability's sake.
Yeah, they have guys out there with the flags, and they made us watch this safety video, and the safety video had this sticker that was like, "Do not stop the safety video or we can see you and we will prevent you from entering the track and you will not get a refund." So we watched this video from like the 80s, and they had guys out there like waving different colored flags depending on like whether it's slow down or move over, someone's behind you. And so, yeah, so it helps prevent crashes. That being said, our second race, there were two fellows who joined us on the track who were not part of our party, and they were very serious go-karters. You could tell this by the fact that they had their own leather driving gloves that they were wearing onto the go-kart track.
That's how you know it's real. That's how you know.
But they were, I felt I was out of my league of that second race. I was bumped several times. You can't really turn your head and see your blind spot in the go-kart.
Yeah, because of the neck brace.
Yeah, the neck brace. Yeah. So I felt I was doing my best to stay on the outer edges and let them pass, but they were so aggressive and kept trying to run me off the road. And they
don't like that.
We got in a go-kart accident. Someone crashed into my back, and I guess go-karts don't have a reverse option. So I had to sit there on the track and wait for the man with the flag to come and pull me backwards and turn my little car around.
Oh my God. It's like the little bird thing in Mario Kart where they come down with the little light and they
with the fishing pole and carry you back. Yeah, it was very much. I really enjoyed my Mario Kart VR experience. I highly recommend it to everyone, also known as go-karting. Try to find a track near you.
Throwing banana peels out the back.
Yeah, that's what my housemate was saying. It's like, it's just, I wish there were banana peels. Like, so yes, that's what I did yesterday. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing all right. I can't complain too much. I've been staying up too late playing video games, which is bad. Yeah, I've been doing this thing lately where I go to lay down to go to bed, and then my brain's like, but it's time to be awake. Why don't you think about all of the things that you might possibly be stressed about in your life? And then we just do the slide. It's old school slideshow, projector situation of every single thing that I could possibly have to think about. Planning my work day for the next day, thinking about things that might come up in the next week to month to year. And yeah, so I haven't been sleeping as much as I should be. But hey, there's video games. So that's been fun. And that's most of what I did yesterday.
I saw this tweet that was like, 2022 has been a very no thoughts, brain empty year so far. And I could not agree more.
Yeah, see, I think I'm having the opposite problem where there's just too many thoughts.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like, okay, here's my question. Do you feel, I feel like games when my head is like, here's everything you could possibly think of. Yeah. Like I play a game and it just replaces all of that with game content. It just pushes it all out.
No, it's great. It's great for avoiding all of the things that your brain's throwing at you. It's wonderful for that. But it seems like since I'm doing that during my wake hours when I go to lay down in bed, my brain's like, oh, you thought you were getting away.
Oh, you just
the backlog of all this shit that we wanted to think about the last 6 hours. God. Yeah. So that's my problem. Gonna work on that. But grateful to have some good video games to play, which speaking of, what are you playing these days?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, this is an exciting month. I think I'm right on the cusp of, I feel like the next time we talk, I'll probably be overwhelmed with all of the games I'm playing. I feel like similarly, I've been in this position of, I've been very overwhelmed and feeling kind of burnout. It's been a long, dark winter, but apparently this first week of February, at least in my time zone, Eastern Standard Time, we've passed the point where the sun sets after 5 p.m. So every sunset, every consecutive day is now the sun setting like a minute earlier. And so we can rest easier knowing that the sky will be continuing to lighten and we will not be sitting in darkness at 5 p.m. But I feel like
it is nice. It is nice to shut down the computer at the end of the workday and like get up from my desk and like my house isn't in completely pitch blackness, which it was for a while there because it's just me and the dogs until my partner comes home, and I'd get up and like go out to the living room. It's complete black. Turn on the living room light, and both dogs are like blinking in the darkness. Like, oh hey, is it dinner time? Yeah. So that has been nice. It's a good point.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I've been a lot in the old noggin, and I feel like I've been reaching for more kind of comfort, cozy games, not bigger, longer titles, but things that are more manageable. So one of those has been a game called Afterparty, which was by Night School Studios, which also made Oxenfree, a game that I was absolutely obsessed with, and I'm very excitedly looking forward to the sequel. Oh, yeah. I just read something that said, so the sequel is called Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals, and for folks who may not have heard about it at all, it's kind of this like spooky supernatural story about a group of high schoolers. And I think in the time of Oxenfree 2, it's like now graduated from college, a group of friends who are tied together due to this mysterious occurrence on an island where they activate this ghostly presence through radio signals. But in Oxenfree 2, I heard that there was a leak in the PlayStation database, and it's supposed to launch on February 8th, which is just in a couple days. So I don't know if that's true, but
yeah, I feel like they would be talking about that more,
right? Okay, so maybe that's like, don't listen to me. I'm just a lowly podcaster.
I mean, hey, look, anything could happen, but I don't know. That doesn't seem like a game that you'd shadow drop, but hey, who knows?
It's like, it's one of the more prestige indies, I would say. But anyway, oh, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I think you'd want a little more build up.
Yeah, more build up.
February is already so packed. It's going to be it's a rough release window for sure if they're trying to squeeze in there. I mean, I personally would make time for it, but I think they'd do better not dropping with some of the big juggernauts coming out in February.
Yeah, like Elden Ring and Horizon. West, like
Dying Light 2 just came out too. That's not for me personally, but that's a big open world game. There's a lot of big, long AAA experiences available right now, so it feels like a tough window to drop in.
Big meaty boys hitting the scene.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Afterparty came out in 2019. So I don't know. It's funny. It totally went over my head, even though I really love Oxenfree. And it's out for PlayStations 4 and 5, Xbox. It's on PC. I got it on PS5. And I'll tell you why. I was totally having this moment yesterday where I've been playing a ton of games on Game Pass. Like, I feel like my Xbox is totally stolen my heart. But I really prefer the DualSense controller with the PS5. Like, it's such a well-designed piece of hardware. It really works great. It's so heavy in the hands, and it the responsiveness and the way the touch it responds.
The way
to
the buttons click is something that I've noticed. There's satisfying is the right word for it. There's something, and I can't quite put my finger on exactly what they did because they're not like clicking. They're not clicking, but there's a way that you can just the way they respond to the way you press down on them. Because I've been playing like smaller like adventure titles where I'm not really the controller's not rumbling. There's nothing like all I'm doing is clicking through screens of text. But there's still something really satisfying about the way the buttons just press.
Yeah, it's soothing. It's like a weighted blanket for your hands.
Yeah,
PS5 controller.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So after feeling like I was using a light piece of plastic to play my Xbox games for a few weeks, and I'm still salty about the fact that there's no recharge option for the Xbox controller. It's very wasteful for the environment, people.
Buy those battery pack things that they have.
Yeah, like, come on, it's 2022, Microsoft. I just wanted to kind of get back in bed with my PS5 in honor of my Valentine's Day episode theme that I'm establishing right now.
Love when you just take us in a theme direction.
I'd love to just surprise Jamie with sudden themes that she has absolutely no time to plan for.
keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to get back into my PS5. And I also felt, so Afterparty is a game, much like Oxenfree, it's sort of signature move for Night School Studios, is this 2D exploration that's populated with this near constant time-sensitive dialogue. Like in Night School games, people are constantly talking, and you kind of have to be paying attention because a lot of the opportunities you have to speak, much like a real conversation, sort of fade if you're not saying something in the right amount of time. And then so in the world of Afterparty, you play as Milo, voiced by Koi Dao, and Lola, voiced by Janita Gavankar, who are two best friends who just graduated college. They get the sense that they party together quite often. They aren't necessarily like, they're like indie kids who aren't quite fitting in with the mainstream crowd, and they can't wait for college to end so they can get on with their real lives away from these posers. But they have this sort of pact between them where when one of them drinks, the other always does, and they always will have the same drink together. And so they're at this party kind of celebrating the end of the school year. All of a sudden, the walls fall away. Demons start crawling out of the walls, and they realize that they've been dead for at least 10 minutes, and they've somehow crossed over into hell. And so you're kind of in this 2D exploration format. You're exploring the beer-soaked, neon reflecting in rain puddles, back twisted alleyway kind of hell that's been crafted here. And they realize that the only way to get out of hell is by out drinking Satan. So it's really cool. So basically the main mechanic format of the game is you're choosing from maybe 2 to 3 dialogue options in these conversations with characters. And what you can do is order drinks at several different demonic drinking establishments. And the drinks sort of have different effects on your conversation. So one drink might make you really flirty. One drink might make you really aggressive. One drink might give you liquid courage and make you sort of more confident to assess a situation. And so when you are under the influence of a drink, new dialogue options appear that are different depending on the effect of the drink on you. And so you can either escalate a situation, or you can diffuse things, or you can cause chaos. And you're basically going through this all-night bender, meeting different demons, seeing how hell all works, and potentially becoming besties with Satan and getting the hell out of there, for lack of a better word. But yeah, I know this is my first time playing the game. I'm a few hours in, and it's a quick study. It's maybe like 6 or 7 hours of gameplay. It seems to be the consensus from folks that I've seen talking about it. And there's 3 different endings. So that kind of flexibility gives you the option to, like, it might be something that I could definitely see myself playing a couple times through just because of the length, and also the fact that it is so jam-packed with dialogue that it's like, I can't even look away from the screen. Or I sometimes feel like the rich, lush visual world building going on in front of me is competing with the dialogue. Like I'm someone who needs subtitles on when I'm playing. And so I just feel like my eye is constantly jumping all over the place because I don't want to miss anything going on in this very like snappy, almost Sorkin-y dialogue going on. Like it's just very like witty and kind of like lots of quick exchanges and banter happening. And I know that this game, it differs from Oxenfree in the fact that genre-wise, it is a comedy. Like it's a adventure comedy. And I think the way that the dialogue is so deeply imbued within the game, it really feels like you're interacting with and playing something that borders almost like a scripted TV show, or like it just has this. I realize I don't play many comedic video games. Yeah. Where I'm like laughing out loud, and that's on purpose. Like it's almost set up to be this almost satirical kind of play on heaven and hell and this kind of coming of age story. So it's doing a lot of things. And so as someone who's played it before, I was wondering if you had any sort of initial remembrances that my musings triggered for you.
I was excited to hear that you were playing this game. I played it this was one of those indie games that I was like very closely watching before it came out. So I played it like right when it came out. So I'm kind of digging through the cobwebs of my mind right now. I remember loving the art style. I remember loving the characters and the snappy dialogue. The thing that sticks with me the most about the game, though, is that it did not hit for me to the degree that Oxenfree did. Like, I think Oxenfree, just the narratively, in terms of what they're doing with the story, the characters in Oxenfree, all of that really tonally resonated for me a lot better. I think because Afterparty is a comedy, I remember some of it being hitting and some of it being a big whiff for me. Also, unfortunately, when the game came out at release, it was pretty buggy. I had some crashes. I had gameplay slowdown and stuttering. And I think, the way the story all resolves left me a little cold. But I did really like the core characters, like the Milo and I apologize, what was the other
Lola?
ones? Milo and Lola. I found them to be really engaging, and I thought their dynamic was really interesting too. And the game does try to like kind of dig in on them a little bit and try to better understand why they both kind of, if I remember correctly, kind of, I think you alluded to this too, they kind of have like a chip on their shoulder of feeling like they're a little bit better than other people. And it kind of like pokes at that and tries to uncover like where are those feelings coming from. Like they're both very judgmental people and they are both surprised to find that they've gone to hell. Like, why did they go to hell and not the better place? And so watching them unpack all of that, I thought was really interesting. I wish the drink system felt more impactful. I think that the drinks were more of a puzzle than a way to really dramatically influence the story. And I felt like the game was a little bit unforgiving in terms of some of the mechanics. If you make a mistake, sometimes you can just totally get locked out of things and narratives. And I remember getting frustrated by that a little bit too. For a narrative game, I wanted a little more flexibility to kind of experiment with the way things might work and then go from there. But by and large, I enjoyed my time with it. Unfortunately, it's some of those more like the sticking points that have stayed with me over the years. But I do remember the art style being really cool. And just, I think it's a really great setup for a game. It's a really great narrative thrust that they put you on. I just don't know if it fully pays off, but I'm glad you're liking it so far.
That all hits for me. I think it's what's working for me. What I'm loving about the game first of all, it's gorgeous on the PS5. I think that, like you said, this is a really wonderfully realized world. So it's like essentially hell is like this college town where as soon as the bell that rings that lets you off work at 5 p.m. that doesn't exist, but we all know what I'm talking about. As soon as they're off the clock, everyone just goes to these bars in these different areas of hell and are partying together. And I'm talking about demons and humans. Like everyone's mingling, everyone's just like dancing all night together. And the characters, Milo and Lola, are kind of like, why? Because as soon as you get to hell, you learn that the two of you are kind of the first to be sent together. Like you're tied together throughout your journey in hell, and you're judged together, and you're assigned tortures together, as well as a personal demon whose job is to torment you mentally. The demon's name is Sister Mary Wormhorn, and she pops up from time to time and is absolutely delightful. And it's like, they get there and they have to go through processing with this like agent who asks them to answer a bunch of rapid fire questions and is going to be essentially matching them with a role and a method of torture in hell. And right when it's your turn to go up and there's people in front of you in cages, and it's like, oh, you cut in line in grocery stores a lot, so you're being sent to have your boobs chopped off every day for the rest of your life, and every day they grow back bigger. And like this other guy, they're like, we're gonna hang you by your nuts from a pole, and kids will use your head as a ball. And it's just like, and the two of you are like, oh my God, we gotta get out of here. And right before it's your turn to get your torture assigned, the demon assigning tortures is like, oh fuck, it's like 5:01, like I'm off the clock, like you'll get your tortures tomorrow. And the two of you are like, wait, we don't understand. Like, why can't you just tell us what it is? And also, like, why are humans just walking with you to the bar? And the demons are kind of like, I mean, we don't want to be torturing y'all all day either. Like, we don't make the rules. We just have, this is just a job to us. And you sort of quickly learn that hell wasn't a place created by Satan. It was created by God. And Satan is God's son and was an angel. This is all, you know, like common knowledge for people who have read the Bible, but like, you know, in his characterization in this story, Lucifer, aka Luke, as he's referred to by a couple characters, you know, tried to rebel against God, didn't work out. He and his siblings got cast down into hell. God made the rules and was like, you've got to torture people and be the arbiter of punishment for eternity. And Satan is pretty much just like, okay, let's make the best of a bad situation. Like, I'm going to try to keep my demons employed. I'm going to try to make hell as fun as it can be since we're all stuck here together. And it's basically just this kind of like towny culture where they're all sort of bonded by this shared experience of having to give and receive punishment for eternity. So it's just like, it's really refreshing, like a really refreshing underworld situation. And a memorable character is actually voiced by Ashley Birch, who folks may know. She's Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. She was Mel in Last of Us 2. She's also like a bunch of people in the Life is Strange. She's been in Life is Strange games. And she's pretty prolific, and she plays a psychopomp, which is something I didn't know was a thing. I Googled psychopomp. Psychopomps are creatures, spirits, angels, or deities in many religions whose responsibility is to escort newly deceased souls from Earth to the afterlife. Their role is not to judge the deceased, but simply to guide them. So Ashley plays Sam, a psychopomp who is essentially this demonic cab driver who carts you around and is kind of like your unofficial guide / friend in this new world. And so it's just this like very tongue-in-cheek, richly realized world that is like very fun to be partying in, and just the kind of abandon with which people around you are you know, letting loose. And sort of there's this aspect of social media where like people will be tweeting kind of like, and you can see the tweets popping up on their phone, and just reacting to things going on around you. So it just feels very much like you're out at a club and there's a lot of chaos happening around you, but there's also like these very specific events and conversations and convoluted, twisty, turny ways the night can go. And it just feels like there's all this possibility. And it's like this tension of like the horror of like, oh my God, we just went to a party at a bar celebrating the serial killer who just came to hell, and everyone's partying because he killed a bunch of people on Earth. So he's like kind of like the man down here in hell, but also balancing that with like the fact that, you know, you're all just kind of stuck there and there's like community in that. I don't know. It's really cool. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I do remember the world building and the meta narrative being my favorite parts of it. I think as I continue to think back on it, I think one of the things that I struggled with was the characterization of the two main characters. They put a lot in your. I don't know. I felt at odds with the dialogue choices that I was making for them and what the game seemed to be telling me about them sometimes, and also struggled to find their distinct personalities against each other. They had a lot of similarities, and I don't know. There was something about their dynamic and the way you're influencing and not able to influence who they are and what their dynamic was that I felt that I struggled with a bit. That didn't quite ring. Like it felt like they weren't set in who they were, which obviously they're in a moment of transitioning growth, but I just couldn't, I struggled to get a bead on who they really were. And there's a lot of points, especially in that early game, where the game lets you make dialogue decisions to kind of decide who they are.
Yes.
But then I didn't feel like I was able to follow through on who I had said these people were as I played the game. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's tough to do.
Yeah.
When you have a game like that where you're making all these dialogue choices, like the developers obviously still have a story that they're trying to tell about the characters, but if they let you kind of decide, you're kind of like co-authoring that with them. And I guess the narrative I was trying to author often felt at odds with what the game developers were trying to actually tell the story about. And felt a little weird.
Totally. Yeah, that resonates. I think it's a game that's really trying to do a lot in a relatively short time frame. And I think in a lot of ways it succeeds, but like the very ambitious undertaking, like as is reflective of that, I think there are some ways in which it maybe fell a little short. I think I'm really glad to be exploring it now in 2022 and sort of feeling like, oh, I missed out on this little gem. I'm having a great time. But I absolutely see the ways in which, it's really doing so much, especially with how much narrative and is just jammed in there. And so, yeah, really cool game. If folks are looking for something a little shorter, but also wanting to be fully submerged in a world that feels very fresh and unique, I definitely recommend Afterparty.
Awesome.
Jamie, what are you playing?
I'm playing some stuff. I'm continuing to be in a mode where I'm kind of hopping between a few different things, but one thing that I wanted to talk about today that I jumped into and that immediately grabbed me, and I pretty much devoured it over the course of a couple of days, is this delightful little game called Toem.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So Toem was released in September of last year. It's out on Switch, PS5, and PC. It's developed and published by a game company called Something We Made, which is just a small 3-person studio based in Sweden. And this is actually the first game that they've done together. You may have seen Toem. I think if you've seen Toem in any trailers or anything, any showcases, you would probably remember it as the hand-drawn 3D isometric game that's entirely in grayscale. It's all gray and black and white, which is a really unique art style that I think works for the game really well. It just makes it visually very interesting. But the thrust of the game is that you play as this young person. It's kind of a coming of age story. You play as this young person. You wake up one day, you live with your grandmother, and your grandmother's like, hey, this is so exciting. Today's the day. Today's your big day. You're going on your big trip. I'm like, okay, great. I'm gonna go on a big trip. And she's like, I got you something. And she gives you a camera. And she's like, hey, take pictures while you're on your trip. And then she sends you out into the world. And that's the thrust of the game. You know that you are going to see the Toem, but you don't know what the Toem is. And so you spend the entire game going to different cities along this bus route. And in each city, you have to collect so many stars to get a free bus pass to the next city. Or to the next area. And you collect stars by doing little favors for people around the community. Usually it involves taking pictures because you've got this awesome little camera. And that's kind of the setup for the game. You've got this 3D perspective. It's an adventure game. You're having little conversations with people. But you're kind of going around these fairly simple little worlds. Everything's kind of broken down into maps that load one at a time. So you're not, you walk into an area, you can see just that area, and then you can kind of see where the exit to that area is, and that will bring you into a new little area. So you're not like seeing a huge open world map in front of you at all times. Everything feels very contained. Which keeps it from being overwhelming, I think, for me sometimes with an open world game that's especially open like this, where it's like, just go around and talk to people and earn stars like that. Those limitations make it feel less overwhelming, even though there's still a lot to do. I feel like I can manage it because I'm working within these little blocks of area. But yeah, so the game gives you that camera and you go around. You can, when you take pictures, they go into your album. You have an album that can hold, I want to say it was like close to 100 pictures. And you can just take pictures of whatever you want. You can pull out the camera. And what happens when you pull out the camera is that the game puts you in a first-person perspective, and you can see the lens of the camera. You can zoom in, zoom out, focus on a thing. But because everything's in grayscale, and because it's all hand-drawn art, there's no messing with the lighting. There's no I've played other games that are photography simulators where you pull the camera up and you've suddenly got a whole litany of options as though you're an actual photographer. Yeah. And I'm sure that appeals to people who really are into photography as a thing. But for me, I get all those options and then I just kind of get stressed. Or I can pull up that camera and I have all those options and now I'm spending 45 minutes trying to get this one perfect shot.
Yeah.
When I need to be like the whole game is taking pictures and guess what? Now the game is 80 hours long because you're spending 10 years taking each picture. This game really makes it simple. It honestly, I felt, obviously the story of the game is that you are this little person going on this journey. I say little person because they're just the character model on the screen. You don't quite look human. You've got kind of like this long, weird nose. Like some of the characters look human. Some of the characters look like other
a little
things.
Bird person.
Yeah, almost like a little bird person, but you're definitely not supposed to be a bird. I think they're just kind of, it's all very cartoonish. And you're just like generally smaller than the other characters on the screen. But when you are taking these pictures, it really evokes the sense of how I feel personally when I'm traveling. Like I really felt encouraged to be like, oh, there's a squirrel in that tree. I'm just going to snap a little picture of that squirrel. And you take the picture, it shows up in your album, and then you can go through your album and you can be like, oh, that one didn't come out, and you can delete it, or you can keep it in your album. And the game gives you a whole, this list of, there's a page in your album book that has the name of the picture already on it, but there's no picture in there. And so it kind of sets up this, you can try to search for those pictures. Like, what does it actually want you to take a picture of? And if you get the right one, a little thing will come up on the screen. So it's had a really great little task system. I'm both doing tasks and stuff for community members and earning my stars to get the next bus pass. But I've also got this sort of side quest sort of system where I'm trying to take pictures of the things to get them to show up in my album. And I don't know. It was just really delightful. I think maybe the whole game said and done, I was probably in it for 6 or so hours, maybe even a little bit less. But because it really evoked that sense of travel and I was capturing things, it just, I don't know. We've been in COVID now for 2 years. And even before that, like my partner and I we're homebodies. Like we're not really people who travel. I've been on like a handful of big trips internationally in my life. But one thing I always like doing when I'm on those trips is just capturing small little things. Like I'm not a photographer, but just pulling out my phone being like, oh, this little like statue here is cute. Or this tip jar in this restaurant, I think they've got like a cool sticker on it. So I'm going to take a picture of this. And I think Toem really captures that. You can just so easily pull your camera out, capture a little moment and save it. And then I did feel like a nostalgia as I approached the end of the game and I was flipping back through pictures that I had taken earlier in the game. It was like, oh, I remember that moment. And just, I don't know, it really struck a chord with me. I think, the game does have, I encountered a few little tech difficulties. There were a few times, especially when I was trying to solve the puzzles with the album of like, oh, I think this is what it wants me to take a picture of. So I try to take a picture and it doesn't click. So I'm like, okay, that's not the thing. So I'd go away. I'd go through the whole map. I wouldn't find the thing. I'd come back to the thing I had originally taken a picture of and just try to take the picture from a slightly different angle or with a slightly different focus. And then it's like, oh yeah, that's the thing. I was like, okay. But the number of times that happened, I could probably count on one hand. Yeah. And honestly, I was really impressed for this being a 3-person team, the seamlessness of how the photography works and how it registers what you're taking a picture of really worked well. A lot of the quests that the community members give you too is around taking pictures of specific things. So the whole thing is kind of this puzzle game of somebody being like, I need to see X. And then you're going through the map and trying to find that thing to get a picture of it. And sometimes you have to set up certain scenarios. For example, at a certain point in the game, you earn a little air horn, or is a bike horn kind of a thing, not an air horn, a bike horn that goes on your camera, and you can use it to startle things. So you can startle birds, and that might open up a new path, or maybe the birds were eating a sandwich that you want to take a picture of, and you can startle them and scare them away. Or there's another section where there's a woman who's skipping around, and if you hit the horn, she'll jump in the air and you can get a picture of her jumping. And that gives you a little quest marker. So I don't know, just a really fucking cute game. The ending was super beautiful. Like the reveal of what the Toem was, just felt like a really heartwarming, emotional moment. Even though it took so little to get it, it still hit for me. And the score It's really cute, simple, charming score. I got the platinum in those number of hours, which for someone like me who does enjoy like trophy hunting and just, it was a good brain scrub kind of game, just like doing simple tasks, easy to achieve, but still felt very charming and like low stress. I really liked it.
Yeah. I love the way that it encourages and evokes that feeling of just unbridled curiosity in the world around you and interacting with your surroundings. Like, I don't know. I guess I put a lot of pressure on myself. I feel like sometimes to like take a good picture, or I get frustrated when I take a picture and it's not the way I imagine it in my head, or I feel like things aren't good enough to preserve because it's not something that would be postable or shareable to social media. And that's a poisonous thought. And so I love hearing you talk about that and how it just does the opposite. It just like reminds of that simple pleasure of just like seeing cool shit in the world and being like, oh, I like that. And
and I want to capture that.
Yeah.
It lets you do selfies too. And I ended up with several pictures. I don't know. It was so interesting to see a thing or a person and have an interaction with them and knowing that like, I'm going to continue my journey. This is not someone that I'm going to be friends with long term, but let me turn around and just like snap a quick selfie of us. And then that goes in the book. And when you're kind of flipping through all the, when the credits roll, it shows you all the pictures that you took in the credits. And you see that picture and you're like, oh my gosh, it's that guy. I remember that little thing that we did. I think it's really impressive that they were able to evoke that feeling with such a simple format, such a simple art style. I really love the experience. Definitely worth a few hours. The game's fairly cheap. I want to say I got it on sale, but I want to say full price. It's like $10 or $15.
Yeah.
I definitely think this is worth people's time. I also say if anyone's played A Short Hike, which came out a couple years ago and is similarly about a young person who's taking a trip up a mountain. And they kind of like the game kind of very similarly obscures like why you need to get to the top of this mountain. It's just like, you just need to get up there. So you spend the whole time like kind of interacting with other characters on the island and climbing this mountain. I think this game definitely shares a lot of DNA with that. For me, though, I actually found the photographic element more enjoyable than some of the gameplay stuff that the game has you do in A Short Hike. Even though Short Hike's story was more emotionally resonated with me. But I think if anything about this game that I'm saying sounds interesting to you, I think those are both good games to try. Just simple, kind of like it's a evocative, emotional narrative that is able to do a lot emotionally without actually doing a lot in terms of writing and plot. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It was really, really sweet. Really cute little time. All right, let's go ahead and transition over to our guest today. Today, our interview is with Diego Argüello, founder and editor-in-chief of gaming criticism and storytelling site Into the Spine, and now a featured contributor at Fanbyte. Diego is a writer with a passion for storytelling and how we talk and write about games. Spencer and I dug in with him about the mission and vision of Into the Spine, which he created to be a place to foster a community of new and aspiring writers focused on sharing knowledge and providing mutual support in navigating challenges like isolation, editor rejection, and the perpetual anxiety that a piece of writing might catch the ire of a toxic fan base. A really unfortunate aspect of games journalism these days. Then we close things up with a chat about Persona 5, a game that's near and dear to both of our hearts, as you all well know. And Diego shares with us his own story of how the game brought him some real-life closure. We really appreciated the thoughtful and genuine conversation we had with Diego, and I'm sure that you all will too. So without further ado, here's our interview with Diego Argüello.
Hello to our wonderful guest, and thank you so much for joining us in the virtual Pixel Therapy studio. To start, could you share your name and your pronouns?
Hi, this is Diego Argüello, and my pronouns are he, him. Thank you.
And Diego, how do you spend your time?
That's a very good question. I've been spending my time trying to have like more of my me time and not like just like work 24/7 this year. So I've been doing just like binge watching shows on TV and playing Rock Band because I got into Rock Band in 2022 for some reason. Just like fulfilling a long time like kids dream I had. And it's great. I'm very glad I did that. and just, I don't know, procrastinating on Twitter, listening to music. That's probably it, I think.
Beautiful. And Diego, you mentioned working 24/7. We know about you that you are a prolific writer and editor. You are the founder of Into the Spine, a platform for stories about video games and what they leave behind. Could you tell us a bit more about the mission of Into the Spine?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for the kind words. So Into the Spine started in early 2018, which has been a long while. Mm-hmm. So it basically came from this idea. I had started like freelancing in 2017 for international outlets after spending 2 years writing mostly as a hobby here in Argentina for like local sites. And I had started like knowing folks and like having a lot of help from established freelancers and also new freelancers like me who had like other experiences as well. And I was finding out that there was a huge gap for like new people in the industry. Like, no, I don't know. Like, for example, I didn't know how, like, what even was a pitch or how to reach out to like editors or like all these kinds of stuff that are kind of like second nature nowadays for me. But for a long time, like for years, it was like a constant learning progress. So Into the Spine was mostly came from this idea of trying to like reduce that gap for newcomers, like provide tools where it is like for pitching, for like writing, for like after publication, giving them like a first byline in the industry, and helping them even if they're like. I never ask for like a perfect like idea or summary of their pitch. It was mostly like, okay, if I know like they have something to say, that's enough for me. Like they're gonna be having like longer conversations with editors like in no time. So it's just like I don't know, like their first step should be like as less painful and stressful as possible. And then just like take it from there, I guess. So it's been nice. It's been almost 4 years now.
It's amazing and wonderful to see that growth. And you mentioned, it's been several years. The platform has grown. You fostered the growth of many writers. How did you go about growing the platform into what it is today?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I didn't do much legwork. It just kind of like happened naturally, which is still amazing me to say. So it all started with this, like a WordPress blog. And started like inviting the people that I was meeting to write for the site, or for the blog during that time. And I was offering a $10 rate, which was like super like modest and low basically. But with the promise of, okay, I know the rate isn't great, because I think I was almost 20 at the time. I had a job and everything, but it was a different time for me, financially wise. But the upside was I was going to be like more than willing to help them with freelancing in general, answering questions and like giving them any tools that they need to like start their careers or like take you even higher, I think. And the way of doing that with a Discord server, where I started like inviting like all my peers and a lot of people that I hadn't met before, but I just like cross paths on Twitter. I started like kind of growing from there, I think. I think it was, we were like maybe like less than 10 people for a long while. We ended up being 40 by the end.
Wow.
And most of them are freelancers that like everyone reads and sees every day now. Now they're like editors and staff writers are like, I don't know, like super. They always been talented. I always say that, but they're like hyper talented nowadays, and it's great to see them like doing innovative things. So I had that on one end, and on the other end, I was like starting to like commissioning more people that I didn't know anything about. So like the server was like one thing, and the site kind of like grew into its own thing, which is great to see. Well, after a lot of that, I'm gonna be talking about this later when I talk about my favorite game. But after like disbanding the server last year, the site was like still on its place, I think. So like that mission stands, even if I don't have like that server as a place for gathering or sharing advice and so on. I've been seeing a lot of freelancers that I work with sharing that same enthusiasm and the same willingness to help others, even on social media or in other servers or any other place. It feels good to see that.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that, you felt like you didn't really have to do much. It just sort of grew on its own. And there was all of this energy of so many people coming together, supporting each other. What do you think was special about Into the Spine? What made it different from other publications? And why do you think it was able to be this kind of space that brought so many people together who are now, people that have become mainstays in the freelance game journalism space?
I think that whatever response I pick for this is going to sound like I'm bragging. But I think
a little bragging's okay.
Thank you. I don't know. I think it was just there was like this camaraderie, I think, of like, I landed a pitch with this publication. Like everyone will share it like pretty much like a minute or two after. And then they will share like, oh yeah, so they told me, I don't know, for example, they're looking pitches on this topic, or they're planning, I don't know, an editorial package next month, and they're looking for ideas. Or like, for example, other cases, it would be like, I didn't have like the best experience with this editor. We were all like try and help and see if there was a solution for that. And in some cases, the solution was, okay, we're like, none of us are going to be pitching this publication ever again. And that happened. And it wasn't just like a matter of solidarity. It wasn't just a matter of, I think it's this thing where we were all freelancers. And in the technical sense, we were all like competing with each other, quote unquote. But it didn't feel that way. I wouldn't say it didn't feel that way for everyone. Because it's, as I learned a lot during that time, and I learned that it's kind of hard to like be on top of so many people at the same time, and expect all of them to have like the same level of like like expectations and self like worth and everything. Seeing like, I don't know, like maybe I was doing like 1 or 2 pieces a month, and there was like this freelancer who was like turning pieces like every day. But that's what we all see on Twitter, and here it was like seeing the other end of like then chasing invoices or like chasing emails or doing all these kinds of stuff. So yeah, seeing like that more like intimate process, I think helped a lot.
Yeah,
like, I don't know, something good built around that I wasn't expecting. No, it was, as I say, I didn't do much. It just like I had the fortune of like stumbling upon a lot of good people during those years.
Yeah.
And yeah, like all of them are like, most of them are still in touch or have become like actual like friends. There was a point before like 2020 where we were like started like planning trips and like to go and see each other, and that happened. So yeah, I don't know. It's been super unexpected, I think, but great at the same time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think freelance writing can be a very lonely endeavor, and you're facing pretty much constant rejection. And the only assurance that you have that you actually have something worth saying is largely coming from yourself until you have the validation of some outlet that also agrees that you're worth investing in. And so I can absolutely see how having this network of people who are all in the same boat and being able to extend that support to each other is incredible. And a lot of this stuff is really difficult to learn. There's no one really giving you the keys to enter the space. And so it often can, you can look at a writer who you see as successful and wonder, like, who did they know? How did they get here? What was their path? I think there's often this perception that there's like a right way and a wrong way to be a writer and to be successful. And so I just think it's really incredible, this community that you fostered and the mutual support that came out of that, and seeing how it lifted so many of you up. It's just really awesome to see.
Thank you.
Since launching Into the Spine, you've written for platforms including Eurogamer, Polygon, The Verge, Washington Post, and you recently joined Fanbyte as a featured contributor. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah.
As you look back over the past 5 years, how do you feel like gaming journalism has changed?
Yeah, so I think I might be, in my position might be biased because of that change. Like my perspective on that change came from like I was saying, like seeing like my close peers trying to like make, because at first it was like we're trying to like make it better like for us, and then we'll start like trying to like make it better for other people as well. Whether it was like Twitter in general, for example, or like closer peers that we all have, separate from the group. And I think, what I was mentioning earlier is just, I think I see like, even if Twitter is just Twitter, and it's a tough space to be in and navigate. It always has been, but I think it's been, I don't know, hasn't been too kind in the past 2 years now.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, but I think I see more of a willingness from a lot of people to like help and bond that at least I didn't see in 2017 or 2018 when I started. And that's great. There's like less restraint in helping each other, in telling other people like, hey, reach out to me if you have questions about like how to pitch this publication, for example. That's one thing. And the other would be, despite seeing a lot of sites or gaming verticals that unfortunately came to a close and a lot of people like lost their jobs, especially in 2020, there's always like that thing where a door closes but a window opens. There's like publications like Fanbyte or The Gamer, or I don't know, like, or even just like indie publications, like Uppercut, for example, which started. They had a rerun at the same time that I was starting Into the Spine. They became huge during these last couple of years. So I think, there's been like more places for people to like try new ideas or like express themselves in ways that aren't just like news or like the gameplay story, whatever conclusion, whatever review from like years ago. Even from like big platforms, I think. So I mean, there's been a lot of cool stuff happening. As always, there's still a lot of work to do. I know, and this is something that I've been trying to like find a solution for it, and I haven't found it yet. I'm sure that for every people that actually pitch, like, I don't know, into a spine or like uppercut or like unwinnable or like independent publication for the first byline, there are many others that maybe because of like language barrier or not finding like a spine between like, I don't know, them Googling how to pitch or like how to get into video games writing on Google.
Yeah.
And they miss an opportunity, or they have like one bad experience with an editor. But one first bad experience with an editor can be a tough thing to navigate if you're just on your own, which is usually the case. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the gap is still there. Now we'd love to know if there's like, I don't know. I don't think there's like a button to press and you'll just like it's solved. But I'm beginning to believe that a lot more people are more willing to help in general, and that's being like opening up the space to like new voices that maybe wouldn't have been there like a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. What do you think was the most helpful thing for you when you were trying to establish yourself as an early writer?
Folks like helping me to gain confidence, I think. I mean, I was born in Argentina. Like my native language is Spanish, not English. I always like English because like playing video games were all in English, and the music I was listening to was in English. And I remember like myself, like, I don't know, like playing something like Silent Hill and being like, key, what's a key? And like grabbing the dictionary and being like, key, Xavi. Oh, okay, yeah, this is a key. And like I had those first 2 years of experience with local outlets, where I was doing like pretty rudimentary stuff, mostly like in news, with like a very like, I don't know, it wasn't like the best format to like express myself. I'll put it that way. And then I started like finding all these like maybe like small or indie publications or like big publications that were commissioning like op-eds and editorial pieces and all these kinds of stuff. And I wanted that. Like I wanted to be like, okay, I want to write for this side. I want to like write in this manner. But the language barrier was always there. Even if I always knew English, just because of pure curiosity. Like I learned for like games or like talking to people from like other countries over the years. But all of that experience didn't really matter when I started sending pitches. Like there was an editor who was like, oh, so like this person wrote, I don't know, like 300 news pieces. That must like account for something. And it was more like, okay, this is cool, but can you like make which is understandable to a degree, but it was more like, can you make a draft or something in English so I can like see what your current like level is and how you can write and everything. That makes sense, but it also was like starting from scratch.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So, or even like just podcasts. I used to like be terrified of like talking to other people. And a lot of folks have been helping me in that regard, like throughout like my entire career, I would say. And that's something I really value. I hope other folks have at least someone on their side that is giving them similar support as well, I think.
Absolutely. Well, we're very glad you're here, and you are
yeah, of course.
Excellent at being interviewed.
Thank you.
So As someone who's helped writers from all over the world grow their craft, what qualities do you think make for a great video game critic?
You mean as a like as video game critic as a person, or like as a
Yeah,
site?
like
Sorry.
what sort of things make for good video game coverage and good video game writing that might be different from, just like talking about the news? I think it was interesting earlier how you mentioned like video game reviews aren't just talking about like mechanics and graphics anymore. There's something deeper happening when we talk about games. And I'm just curious, like, to have you speak more about that.
Yeah, of course. That's also a really good question. I'm not. It's funny. I'm not that type of critic who like has like, I don't know, an academia background. I can make like these super long essays, which like are have like a kind of vocabulary that make me like Google words like every 5 minutes. That's one type of criticism that maybe I cannot talk about too much.
Yeah.
But for me, it's more about I don't know. I think there's always maybe some games, or like me in general, doesn't like it has a chance of not generate anything to like whoever's like watching or playing or listening. But when it does, no matter like how big or small it is, talking about it in coverage, I think it's what makes it distinct and interesting to read. Like for example, in Spine, like our categories are like there's opinion, which is like a more traditional criticism, but there's also stories. And I'm always interested in hearing like stories. Like the word story sounds like simple, but that's what I always like to read. That's what surprised me when I was starting out. Seeing people, they were talking about the game, but the game wasn't like the focus of the piece. It was how they felt, if the experience or the story or the characters or the music or something that happened, even if it was just like one moment in like a 20-hour game or like a 100-hour game that stuck with them. That's what I'm interested in. What I'm always interested in reading, I think.
It's fascinating to me how there's something about games that really engenders this really deep emotionality, and this like similarly, like the video game stories that I'm most interested in reading are the ones where people are drawing connections between what they're playing to something in their own life, or an understanding about their self that they haven't been able to come to without the help of the game, or how the game helped them cope with something. It's just like there's so many contexts in which we can engage with games, and there's just something so powerful about them. I guess that leads to my next question, which is, you write a lot about games. Do you consider yourself a gamer? Do you identify as a gamer?
So I think being in games media, I think leads to a position where the word gamer doesn't have like the best connotation. Like on our end, like it's at least from my perspective, seeing folks on Twitter being like, "Oh, the gamers are at it again." It's maybe
those pesky gamers.
These pesky gamers, and I'm like, "Oh, who was the poor person who gave a game a 9 instead of 10?" And I'm now like having to deal with it like a toxic fan base or something, which is awful. I mean, we all kind of like laugh about it, but it's not great because it keeps happening over and over.
Yes.
But that's one way of looking. Like, that's the pessimist way of looking at the world. The other way, I'll say it's. I think so. I mean, it's always been a big passion of mine. Ever since I was a kid, like all my early memories are like playing something. That and music, games. Yeah, I mean, there's always this thing where if you're working in games, it depends on the people, on the person, of course, but it maybe leads to a place where it's hard to like actually enjoy them in your free time. Because if you're like, I don't know, talking about games or like playing games for work or something for an entire day, then you sit on the couch and you're like, I don't want to play a game. I'm gonna like cook something or like take a shower and go to sleep immediately, or like maybe watch something on Netflix or whatever. But it's been happening to me now that I'm better at managing my own time and having breaks and everything. Where maybe I just play something like, I don't know, Chicory, for example. Like something like Inscription. And yeah, I saw everyone on Twitter talking about those games. And I was like, I don't have time for them. But making the time and enjoying them for my own leisure, and just like finding something like funny or something rewarding for them. And that takes me back, I think, to like, oh yeah, this is why like I always like games in the first place. Because like them show me like a new world that I wasn't expecting, that can be hilarious, can be sad, can be, I don't know, emotional. And I don't know, and like losing myself in that experience, even if it's just for like half an hour. So yeah, I would say, yeah, in that sense, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I very occasionally write video game reviews, and I very consciously I don't pick a game that I really am excited about or that I think I'm really going to like, because I feel like when I'm asked to put on a critical hat, like I engage critically with everything I love, because that's part of how I show my love for it, is by thinking through and, just dreaming up situations or loving it so much that I want it to be even better. And I sometimes feel like if I'm being asked to put on a critical hat, I might sometimes pay too much attention to like what I should be analyzing about it. And it takes me out of the immersion of just being able to fully offer myself to it and like give into the experience of it. And I also find that I get caught up in like, what are other people thinking about this game, and should that shape how I think about it, which can be hard to push back on.
Yeah, that's definitely that's hard to like push back sometimes. Like the critical consensus of something. Like I always think we always have that fear when we're like doing a review where it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like a review of like an unexpected game or something. You're like not vibing with it too much. You're like afraid of, oh, maybe like everyone loves the game except for me. And I keep seeing a lot of like established folks that have been doing this for years, that keep having the same thought. Maybe like, oh, I'm glad that this game is having mixed reviews, because I wasn't sure if I was gonna like get dragged about it or not on Twitter. So yeah, that's it's when you're in the bubble, it's kind of hard. I mean, we will see like a lot of people like pushing that either way, and it leads to like some great work, especially around AAA games, I think. But yeah, it's tough.
On this podcast, we like to invite folks to talk to us about a game that has had a certain impact on their life. You came to us with a game, technically two games, Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. Games that have certainly consumed a combined 500 hours of my own life. And so I'm very excited to talk to you about them. Cool. Just for the folks at home, Persona 5 came out in 2016. It is a Japanese role-playing video game developed by Atlus. And it's the sixth installment in the Persona series, which is a part of the larger Megami Tensei franchise. And then Royal, which is an expanded and sort of updated remastered version of the game came out in 2019. And essentially just sort of a high level plot summary, very high level, is that, beneath the facade of a typical urban high school life, a group of teenagers find power in embracing aspects of their self that society has encouraged them to hide. And by day, they're essentially going about their city business, going to school, hanging out with friends. And at night, they jump into Tokyo's collective unconscious and battle manifestations of the public's dark and twisted desires, NBD. Diego, you told us that the game hit differently both times that you played it, Persona 5 and then Royal. I'd love to hear you talk more about your relationship to these games.
Of course. First of all, that was an excellent summary of the game.
Thank you.
That was great. Yeah, so...
You can tell I've played them a lot.
Yeah. So Persona 5. So my relationship with Persona was almost non-existent until 2016. I was starting going out with whom became my partner for almost 3 years during that time. And she was she still is a super big fan of Persona games. And at some point she was like, you should try and at least play Persona 4 when I got a PS3. I was like, okay. I don't remember putting 15 hours a month, which is the tutorial basically for these games.
You may have not even hit the title screen.
Yeah, basically. But she was super anticipating Persona 5, obviously. And when it came out, which came out on April 4th, the worldwide release, which was also my birthday. Yeah, coincidentally. I remember saving money and gifting them Persona 5. So we started it together in my birthday. And I was like, this game is great. Why didn't I get 2 copies of this? Basically. I started playing it that year. And as I said, it was also the first year that I started freelancing for international sites. So it was and also on a more personal side of things, I think I spent a lot of time with my partner, but the previous years have been a bit lonely, I think. That time in between me finishing high school and trying to study different careers until I stumbled in journalism. I went to be a graphic designer, and that didn't work out very well. There was this gap between high school and me getting my first full-time job, where I was seeing friends but not hanging out too much. So pretty much my weekends were more of me seeing my partner, and then when I wasn't seeing my partner, I was playing Persona 5. And I would play Persona 5, I remember, for 10 to 14 hours sometimes. Because I just couldn't stop. The game loop is I don't know, it's engulfing, I think. So that was my routine for a long while. And I think the themes about friendship and bonding and this small group that it sits together to one another despite I don't know, fighting angry politicians or finally fighting God at the end because it's a RPG. It was I don't know, it was very touching in many ways. Definitely. And I remember relating to a lot of that stuff with Spine. I made this parallelism, I think, in my mind between I don't know, that group of Phantom Thieves and my group of people and freelancers. And that kind of stuck with me during those years. And And when Royal came out, it was a whole different like situation for me, because it was like, for example, I didn't cover like the original Persona 5 for work, and I was assigned a review of Persona 5 Royal at that time. So the expectation was already like different from like the experience, I would say.
Yeah.
So I was like playing it for review. We like trying to hit the embargo and everything. But then I kind of like left the game there for like months. Like I got to see a hint of the new act that Royal has, like after where the like original game is supposed to end. But I missed that. Like I missed that whole bit. And when I resumed that, like almost a year after, I was single, and Spine, like the Discord server wasn't in like the best place, because to like make like a short summary, because it's a long story. There were like a lot of things that I didn't catch with enough time. The kind of like snowball in the background. Maybe it was like somebody not feeling as secure as other like quote unquote established writers, despite the fact that we all were like sharing our struggles, we like trying to like find a place in the industry. And there was also a case that happened that we found out that someone was very close to all of us, very active in the server as well. Some victims started talking, survivors, started talking on social media, and basically saying, hey, that person is an abuser. We had no idea about it. It was like heart wrenching, basically.
Yeah.
For everyone, because like again, like this person had like a big presence there.
Yeah.
And it was like a tough time, and like revisiting Persona 5, without spoiling too much of that last act, because I think it's worth seeing and worth playing.
Yeah.
I think it's like finishing Persona 5 was like the group like saying goodbye to one another, but being like, hey, we're gonna be seeing each other like soon again. Persona 5 Royal felt more like a proper farewell of them like going in. I don't know what Atlus is gonna plan, if they're gonna like keep making games on the franchise or not. But it was more like them going on their separate ways. And that difference was like I saw that ending last year, and like resuming the game and seeing that I had named like the investigation group, when they gave you like the option to name, to give them a name. I had chosen Into the Spine, and seeing Into the Spine and being like, right, I have forgotten about this. Yeah, it served as a closure.
Yeah.
One that had been like lingering for a long time. But it was also tough.
Yeah.
to I don't know, to face, I think.
Absolutely. I what you're speaking of reminds me of something my therapist has been trying to remind of me recently, which is that pain, the expectation that working on communication, working on yourself, being the best person you can be, that doesn't mean that we're going to ever be able to completely remove pain from our lives. Pain is a constant, and it's about how we're able to move through it, and what we can learn from it, and how we can care for ourselves through it. But there's a difference between pain and suffering, which is the control that we have over ourselves and the ability to move forward, and that the pain is something to teach us. So knowing very little about your situation, I just want to honor that, like, I think it's really amazing how the game sort of provided this poetic parallel to what you're going through in your own life. And even though it was painful, it was something that the game was able to support you through, and that you ultimately moved through too, and hoping that you're in a much better place in your life now. But thank you for sharing that. I think we've talked about Persona 5 Royal on the podcast before, and something I was remembering, Jamie, how you were telling me, like, one of the things you've loved about this game is that, like, you didn't want it to end, like, and Diego, when you were talking about the gameplay loop, I just remember, Jamie, you saying how you didn't want the game to end because it so perfectly emulated that feeling of, having a tight-knit group of friends, finding those pockets through the week to hang out with them, making sure you were making time to, like, when you're a young person, like getting out of school, doing an activity, and then going home in the evening. Like, it felt like there were so many options throughout the day to, like, do different activities. That doesn't always feel the same as an adult. I don't know, Jamie, if you had any Persona 5 feelings you recalled as Diego was talking about it.
I mean, I loved it. Strikers didn't do enough for me.
I know,
Strikers is not the sequel that I wanted.
No.
I need more Akechi. That's all.
But yeah, that feeling of being in a group, and that easy camaraderie, like the scenes where everyone would just be hanging out in the cafe, and someone would be eating some Pocky, and someone else would be on their phone, and someone else would be playing a handheld video game. Like, it all just felt so lived in and real. And I really loved that about the game too.
Yeah. It definitely helped to, like, fill a gap, I think, that I had in terms of, like, I had friends, but I had, like, kind of like this distance myself from them. I came around in recent years, and I'm like a much, I don't know, there's, like, more people in my life today, which I'm grateful for. But it definitely felt like, like a reminder of that in both, like, instances, I think. So yeah, it was a very important game, I think. And it came even more important in ways that I wasn't expecting when I played Royal. So they definitely, there were, like, two games or like one game rather, that I probably, like, always have in mind, I think.
It's a constant struggle for me to not just go and replay Persona 5 when there's so many other games to play, because I know that I'll just spend months playing it and nothing else.
Basically, I had a couple of days of, like, holiday in December. I was like, finally I can catch up on all these games that I missed this year.
Yeah.
But I could also play Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah.
Because the New Game Plus is right there. So why not?
It's right there. It's so clickable.
Why shouldn't I? Diego, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can folks follow you and keep up with your work?
Thank you so much. Folks can find me procrastinating on Twitter at Diego Argüello 66. That's Argüello. And they can also follow Into the Spine at Into the Spine on Twitter. And also see my work at Fanbyte. That's at Fanbyte Media on Twitter as well. And yeah, I'm always online. So always a comment or DM away for. And if I will also say that if any, like, new writers or, like, folks who, like, are maybe, like, thinking about writing or listening to this episode, reach out, because I would love to, like, help in any way I can.
That's amazing. Diego, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
is up for today's session of Pixel Therapy. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope that listening to our thoughts and feelings gave you some thoughts and feelings of your own. If you want more Pixel Therapy, come check us out at patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can snag that monthly bonus episode for just $2 a month, plus opportunities to get involved with the community and influence the show directly. If you're not up for contributing monetarily, but you enjoyed this episode, you can show your support for free by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and following us on Twitter and Instagram at Pixel Therapy Pod. That stuff is just as important, and we appreciate it just as much. Remember that Pixel Therapy is a happy member of the But Why Though Podcast Network, so you can support us by supporting them and heading over to butwhythoughpodcast.com. That's though with a THO. Take a peek at the inclusive geek community they're building around pop culture news, reviews, and kick-ass podcasts like yours truly. And you can keep up with all of this stuff and more by visiting our website at pixeltherapypod.com.
Finally, since we like to put our money and our energy where our mouth is, we end every episode with a recommended side quest. It is Black History Month here in the US. Happy Black History Month. And while we should be supporting and uplifting Black folks all year round, we did want to take a minute to talk to you folks about the National Black Justice Coalition. Since 2003, the National Black Justice Coalition has been America's leading national civil rights organization dedicated to the empowerment of Black, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, and same-gender loving people, including people living with HIV and AIDS, through coalition building, federal policy change, research, and education. NBJC's mission is to end racism, homophobia, and LGBTQ/SGL, which for same gender loving, bias and stigma. NBJC supports Black individuals, families, and communities in strengthening the bonds and bridging the gaps between the movements for racial justice and the LGBTQ plus equity. You can find out more about this really great organization and donate at nbjc.org.
Thank you for that side quest, Spencer. That is our show for today. So go forth, run a story mission, level up some stats, and don't forget to hug an NPC every now and then. We'll be back soon with some more Pixel Therapy. Bye-bye.